Greetings again, my fellow comrades in humanity. We're here for another 10 questions of the Holy Bible, and as usual, let's just get straight in. Question 1, numbers 31, 48 to 50. In this I implore you to ask yourself, if you're seeing this story unfold the way I am, that these generals are actually feeling really bad for just going and slaughtering a whole damn bunch of people. And they're giving the gold to Moses to appease the God that they feel like they may have angered by doing something that was morally wrong in their own hearts, even though it was implored by their God. Seems a bit of a weird double standard that the humans saw more immorality in God's word than God saw in it himself. At this point, I'm pretty sure God's not even there anymore, and it's just Moses. But hey, that's my opinion. Question 2, numbers 32, 13 to 15. Here we see yet again a man debating with God, although this time it's Moses. And I ask, how did we get from having God in everyone's view and seeing all these massive miracles to this point after they've slaughtered everyone that the only way to talk to God is through Moses, and he doesn't even really appear to anyone anymore. He's gone. He disappeared. I feel that's because there's no more need for God anymore. He doesn't need to scare his own people into killing a whole bunch of other people. They have what they want now, so they don't need God. Question 3, numbers 32, 34 to 38. Here I ask you, does not Moses see he can claim more land? This is literally Moses reasoning out the way to build his tribes. He has envisioned, probably from the start, he had this sort of plan going. And as he stands atop a hill and sees all the lands that he's conquered and is going to conquer, he has to come to the conclusion, well, yeah, it's better to have more land, isn't it? It's not a hard decision to make. Question 4, numbers 33-4. Did God just kill other gods? Were there gods for him to kill or judge or whatever version of this you want to read or interpret? How many gods were there? Because it seems at one point there was just one, and now we have a passage where he's killing the other gods. You could translate that, I guess, or interpret that, to say that because they wrecked Egypt so hard while leaving that it left them godless, but it wouldn't make any sense. They'd still keep their own gods. He would actually have to go back and kill them. I don't know, it seems weird. And what about Hinduism and all those other things? Did he have to go and kill them too, and it just wasn't mentioned because Moses didn't know about it? Seems like a really good question to be asking at this passage. Question 5, numbers 33, 55 to 56. How many genocides is Moses going to command? This one doesn't even say if he was told to do it by God. It just says that he commanded it, and they did it. And he wants everyone dead, but the virgins, all their pagan idols, everything that they had ripped down, torn down, make sure there's nothing but his God left. So he's making sure that his law is the only one that's going to be left for his tribes. So you can really quite clearly see his agenda, in my opinion. Question 6, numbers 35, 1 to 8. Here Moses recognizes that upon his death, and puts together a system so that the people won't break down into a deplorable society. He knows he's gonna die soon, so he needs to set forth some rules that they won't apparently lay down in properly in the Ten Commandments. God always has to adjust later on to account for things that he should have seen, I guess, if you're an omnipotent, omniscient God. But obviously he didn't, so now Moses has to make some more laws to keep the system going and to keep the form of control going. And he's only actually referencing the only crime I know that has no sort of equal punishment except the deed itself, murder. When you take away someone else's life, there is no equivalent to it except to die yourself. You can't give back someone's life. If you rape someone, they're alive, and you could possibly make it up to them. Probably not in this day and age. Well, you probably still could. As of apology, actual apology, repentance in the actual form of itself, not to God, but actually feeling guilty for what you did. I feel it's highly unbelievable, and I feel like it could happen. They could be reformed rapists. I think that's a whole other debate, but it just goes to my point that there's no equal to murder except for murder. You can't exchange one thing for another. If you rape someone, they could rape you, I guess, and that would be the same, and both people would live with the same sort of shame, or I wouldn't know, not having been there myself. Probably a bad example to use. I don't know. That's why they're questions. Question 7, numbers 35 and 15. Is this where we get this whole sanctuary thing, where you see the person running to church and go, sanctuary? Because it really seems like it. Does that mean the faster runners are more moral? Do they get a better chance just because they can run faster? What if you can't run very fast? You're kind of screwed then. You don't get that protection. Unless I guess you're sheltered by people, but it's just the recognition that there's going to be murder, that these people are still going to sin. It doesn't matter what they do, what sort of laws are laid down. We see this to the very day. People still commit crimes. People still do the wrong thing. It doesn't matter how harsh the punishment is. It doesn't stop people doing it. It's something I've always said to people is the law says you can't go and kill someone. But unless they had a policeman at every doorstep, or even you'd have to have every entrance covered of every house on earth, you could never truly stop a murder from happening. You can only punish the committer of the crime. So this is sort of like a court of war, I guess, with the mob mentality rule as well, to look at it another way. Very poor system, but they're barbarians, so that's what they are. Question 8, numbers 35, 16 to 25. So the use of weapons automatically makes it murder. That's a very strict rule. And it would be a very scary one, if you weren't very confident not even just confident, but competent in your fighting ability. Now you couldn't even pick up a piece of stick to defend yourself because it would make it murder. That's a stick. I can understand a sword. That kind of equates to a gun in this day and age. Like the sword, yeah, I can see that one, but a piece of wood or a rock? What if the man is 7 foot and you're 5 foot? His reach alone gives him a massive advantage over you. And to defend yourself, you would have to extend your reach with at least something. I'd run, but that's me. I've always been the fight or flight. Never had to defend my daughter or my wife yet, and I don't want to ever have to come across that, because that's the one time that flight won't be the response. But what you can really see here is Moses quickly setting up a set of laws to govern a people that he knows are going to need governing when he dies, and he's leaving it mostly to the Levites. He's setting up the church, and the church is the court. They're one and the same in this, from what I can decipher from the Bible that I'm reading so far. So yeah. It's also kind of weird because now that Moses isn't here to do the talking for God anymore, he needs a sort of two-part system where the priests sort of have the word of God on their lips but don't. I'm guessing is where the narrative is going with this. It leaves a lot of questions, like where has God gone, and without Moses, is God even accessible anymore? Question 9, Numbers 35, 30 to 34. Is this not Moses admitting that his people are just fallible? Just like all the others they just killed and slaughtered? This chosen people really don't seem very special at this time, nor throughout all of Exodus and Numbers. They've always been sinners. They've misbehaved worse than when they were with the Egyptians, from what the text kind of gave me the impression. They were doing better morally under the Egyptians, and it took him a long time to sort of beat them in line. And the one thing about all the wars that they fought is they had one thing on their side, and it's very clear what that one thing was. It's the name of the book, Numbers. I think that's why it's called Numbers, is because he had numbers on his side. That's why he was able to win battles without losing a general. I don't feel like it had anything to do with having God on their side. It just had to do with them having numbers on their side. Is that true or is that false? It's the narrative of the book so far. Question 10, Numbers 36, 1 to 13. So here we see Moses being reminded of something that he was supposed to remember, and being guided by God. You think he would have that sort of half omniscience, I guess, or at least God could have told him beforehand how this was all going to play out. But you also see that he's come across a problem that he didn't see, nor his God saw, which is, how will the people be able to keep the land that they hold? And I think this is actually embedded in the story to give him a reason to pass this sort of board down. And it's being very sexist, obviously. Anybody with half a brain can see how sexist this is. But Moses is accepting that once he's gone, he's going to need all these different rules in place that have to do with survival and life. And, well, land as well, I guess. The Ten Commandments, all the rituals, they seem to take a back step here, and now Moses / God, whoever, seems to have to make up a new set of rules really quickly that they've established a much larger, well, now that they've got their land of milk and honey, I guess. Which is weird because they kept referring to Egypt as the land of milk and honey as well. So the land of milk and honey is, in my mind now, just fertile land that's being able to be farmed, I guess. So the whole narrative, this is my final thought, the whole narrative of Exodus through Numbers is that Moses stole a group of people from the Pharaoh. Yes, I'm going to call it stealing. Ran off into the wilderness, found himself between a rock and a hard place, especially considering his people just wanted to go back to the ways that they were used to, which is what humans pretty much are going to do, which I saw more as from starvation and scare tactics, and then uses those people to slaughter a whole bunch of other people who were promised the same land that he was promised. So God's breaking his own rule and doing all this to establish a bunch of tribes and a new bunch of laws that kind of half resemble what he just took them all away from. There's been no real change in the quality of life of the Israelites, except for, I guess you could say, freedom. That's if you do believe that, well, the Pharaoh went nuts and just started enslaving people for no reason. Besides, they started to outnumber him. He probably could have, in my mind, the Pharaoh would have just been like, hey dudes, you seem to be making your own society, let's live side by side. He was like a good one. Or, hey guys, you want to stop breeding with each other and breed with us too and we'll become one race? There's another one. Which, how could you tell they weren't in the first place? Like, when Moses was there, it didn't specifically say that Hebrews only bred with Hebrews and Egyptians only bred with Egyptians. So I'm guessing like there must have been Hebrews who lost their first sons. Maybe there were Hebrews that didn't even leave with Moses. Did some of the Egyptians run away with Moses is another good one. There's a lot of questions that are just left for your mind to fill the gaps in ways that really could mess up the Bible's narrative of chosen people a lot. I think that's about it for this one. I'm happy to have finally finished these 2 books. Family, always family first. This includes your friends, obviously anybody who loves you. I always say this, but I feel like we need to say this to each other more so that we know it. And always, 100%. Stay safe.